Welcome into my music space, and of course my name is Tufat. Now in this episode we'll be kicking up a 3-part series on the evolution of Juju music. And as usual, please keep supporting us by liking, subscribe, and of course hit the bell to get notifications as new videos drop. In the late 19th century into the 20th century, the Yoruba tribes of West Africa spread over much of southwestern Nigeria and Benin Republic, played a particular drum they called the asiko. Asiko drumming was quite popular, and this was inculcated into what would later be called palm wine music. Now, palm wine music is a retrospective term for early 20th century music that combined West African instruments with portable ones brought by sailors and returnees. Now, this genre of music was played all over the West African coast, from Liberia to Sierra Leone to Ghana and even Nigeria. The return to the motherland by emancipated Africans from Brazil and Cuba saw the introduction of banjos, ukuleles, guitars, and different shakers to the variant of palm wine music that was played in Lagos at that time. Some of these returnees had settled on some portion of Lagos Island. Examples are the Aguda that settled at the Brazilian quarters, also called Popo Aguda, and the Saros that settled at the Ologbowo area of Lagos. The 1920s saw the birth of the earliest form of Juju music by the infusion of palm wine music with Yoruba folk music and idioms. This music originated at the Ologbowo area of Lagos Island. It is said that a certain group of young men, which can be referred to as area boys, who regularly gather at a mechanic workshop each time to have fun. Now, this group of young men were led by a certain young man called Tunde King. Abdurrafiu Babatunde King was born to minority Muslim Saru parents. He led a trio which assemblage include the guitar, the samba drum, the shekere or shaker, and of course this will later expand to include the tambourine and of course a banjo. The name Juju itself was said to have come out of the Yoruba word Juju or Juju, which means to throw. Now, this was said to have occurred after the introduction of the tambourine that was said to have been borrowed from a local brass band by a band member. Now, this band member developed a unique style of playing the tambourine that while playing it, he throws it in the air. And this happened that the crowd usually urge him to Jew while he's playing, to throw it up. And of course, that is how the name Juju was coined. By the mid-1930s, Tunde King enjoyed considerable success with different recordings and radio play. Now, Juju music was first put on tape in the year 1936 after Tunde King did a recording for Philophone. Now, other records were to follow, like one by Ojoga Daniels. With the advent of the Second World War, Tunde King joined the Merchant Marine and left the scene. He would later re-emerge after the war in Freetown, Sierra Leone, and later in Lagos. Now, by no means was this the end of Juju music, quite the contrary. Juju music grew after this from strength to strength. Some of his hits include Oba Onyibo and of course Dunia, just to mention a few. Worthy of mention are the contributions of the Minstrel, a one-man vocal band to the evolution of Juju music. Examples are Erewole Denge, that played his own version on a 4-cornered bass drum, and of course Kokoro, the blind minstrel, that played his on the tambourine. The 1940s saw the emergence of many fantastic Juju artists, amongst of which is Ambrose Campbell, the man referred to by Fela Kuti as the father of modern Nigerian music. Campbell had formed a group alongside fantastic guitarist Buster Hughes, which they called the Jolly Boys Orchestra. The pair will later reunite in London in 1946, where they formed the band the West African Rhythm Brothers. This band went on to accompany Britain's first black ballet company, Les Ballets Negros, on the tour of the United Kingdom. With numerous recordings and television appearances under his belt, Ambrose Campbell helped to project Juju music internationally. Now, this band had numerous appearances on British TV and went on to establish residence at the Abalabi Club in Soho. Now, another artist worthy of mention in this era was Akombi Wright, also known as Akombi Ege. Now, he was popularly referred to as Seriki Oni guitar because of his skills on the guitar. He helped in popularizing the talking drum after it was introduced to Juju music in the 1940s. He was well known for his political commentaries in his song, and he was a staunch supporter of Hubert Macaulay and NNDP. Now, over time, Juju music had seen different innovation in form of introductions of instrument, style, and form. Now enter Ayinde Bakari, Mr. Juju himself, who had at one time studied under Tunde King as a schoolboy. The end of the Second World War saw a boost to Juju music. Now, Ayinde Bakari was a purist who believed in sticking to the roots of Juju music. His originality was widely renowned. He never believed on leaning or borrowing from anyone's lyrics. He introduced the electric guitar to Juju music, dropping the banjo he used to play. He was perhaps the first Juju artist to introduce electric amplification. And then there was Julius Araba, whose band, the Rhythm Blues, had a certain young man called Fatai Rolling Dollars. Julius Araba had apprenticed under Akombi Wright. Araba, an accomplished guitarist in his own right, played the guitar, while Rolling Dollars played the agidigbo, a small box Lemalophone tom piano. Worthy of mention alongside Araba is a man named J.O. Yoshiku. Both men revolutionized Juju music in their own way. They introduced a progressive and avant-garde approach to it, which they called toy motion or easy motion, that involved small movement. They did not believe in singing praise lyrics for cash donation. They believed that the proper role of musician was to provide philosophical commentary on everyday life. They believed in the use of proper musical scale as opposed to most of the Juju artists then who tuned their guitar with their voices. They also used refined composition, a term associated with Western musical practice. Araba's band enjoyed success, and it was said that they even brought in a young man who sometimes sang backup vocals, sometimes played shekere or the shaker, and sometimes acted as their roadie, a young man by the name of Ebenezer Obey, who would go on to become a household name and a legend in his own right. Now, the band will later disband, and some say that this was due to Araba bringing his wife into the band. Now, Julius Araba went on tour of the UK and Europe, while Fatai Rolling Dollars formed this band called the African Rhythm Blues. Now, Rolling Dollars also invented a style of Juju music he called the Agidigbo system. This can be said to be the first incarnation of Fatai Rolling Dollars. Now, at this juncture, I would like to also acknowledge that there are other Juju artists that I have not mentioned, and they are worthy of mention. Some of them sang in their native dialect, different from the Yoruba dialect. Some sang in the Laje dialect, some sang in the Ekiti dialect, some sang in the Ijesha dialect, some sang even in the Egba dialect. Some of these artists include Theophilus Iwalokun, who sang in his Ikale dialect. C.A. Balogun sang in his Ekiti dialect. Others like Kayode Ege, a Ijesha band leader, and of course Suberu Oni from Ondo, Idowani Shaun, an Egba band leader who formed the Lisabi Brothers. By the 1960s, as Nigeria gained independence, Juju music saw the rise of its first superstar. Isaiah Kehinde Ike Dairo became a household name after winning the competition organized by the then Western Nigeria Broadcasting Commission, WNBC. After trying his hand on music in different forms, he got his big break after joining the band of one of Juju pioneers, Ojuge Daniels, in Ibadan. He founded a 10-man band called Morning Star Orchestra in 1957. He would later change the name of the band to Blue Spot before he won the competition. He focused on beats and tempos that reflected different ethnic sounds, and this helped his acceptance by different ethnic groups beyond his Yoruba tribe. His band played music that not only reflected the music of his Yoruba nation, but that of the Edos, the Shekiris, the Urobos, and even the Hausas. One of his first major hits was called Salome, and he was known to have introduced the accordion to Juju music. Ike Dairo was the first African musician to be awarded a MBE, a member of the British Empire. It is worthy of mention that at this period, highlife music was also very popular. But the difference between the two is while highlife musicians referenced written music in their performance, the Juju musicians referenced and played from their head. And then there was Ernest Olatunde Thomas, better known as Tunde Nightingale or the Western Nightingale, a unique throwback to the days of Tunde King. I remember growing up to his songs around the house. My mom was a huge fan. Tunde Nightingale and the Agbajoli Orchestra performed regularly at the West African Club in Ibadan. Nightingale combined the high-texture early vocal styles of Tunde King with the expanded assemblage structure of post-war Juju. Despite that Ike Dairo dominated the post-independent Juju scene in the 1960s, Tunde Nightingale gained popularity among the socialists in Lagos, and this was due to the dichotomy between social party and dancehall music. I remember reading a column written by my dad for Drum magazine in July of 1967. He said, and I quote, "The jet set that patronized Nightingale had decided even when Ike Dairo was at the peak of his popularity against Dairo's brand of Juju music. What was more was that they were firm in their belief that Juju music was for social parties and not for dance hall. And because Dairo was playing more at dance than at social parties, they decided that Tunde was the horse to back. They went all out to patronize and popularize his type of Juju music." End quote. His brand of Juju music was referred to as Showambe, a reference to the money he expected to be sprayed while performing, or as a double entendre, referring to the beads around the hips of dancing women. It was a call and response. He will shout Showambe and they will respond by saying Owambe. This can be translated as Showambe, do you have it? And Owambe is I have it. The last but by no means the least artist that I would like to mention in this episode is a man by the name of Dele Ojo. Now, Dele Ojo, while in school, learned to play the clarinet and the trumpet in a band that was directed by someone who later became a high-life great. He goes by the name of Roy Chicago. By the mid to late 1960s, highlife music was on the decline among the Yoruba people. Juju music was taking over. Now, Dele Ojo moved to Lagos in the early 1960s and will eventually join the band of Victor Olaiya, a highlife great. His brand of music was a combination of highlife and Juju music. Now, Dele was fond of recording tapes where side A would be in pure Yoruba dialect, while side B will be in his native Ekiti dialect. Now, Dele's Juju brand was very unique. It was a Juju style with heavy influence of highlife music. So thank you for being with me in my music space, and like I said in the beginning of this video, this is part 1 in a 3-part series on the evolution of Juju music. So please keep supporting by liking, subscribe, and of course hit the bells to get notifications as new videos drop. Thank you for watching. Peace.